The ultimate is we want to connect the bigger truth of our souls to this body. We want to embody who we are, the soul of who we are, so we can express that in the world. And that's really what the Akashic Records is and does.
Hi, I'm Swara, and welcome to Akashic Records Unlocked Summit, a summit to spread awareness and share insights about the Akashic Records and healing within the Akashic Records to bring a little more happiness, abundance, and maybe even a little magic into our lives. Today, we're so excited to have JEN DUCHENE with us. JEN DUCHENE is an Akashic mentor, spiritual teacher, soul guide, and creator of the Illuminating Journey cards. Using the crystal clear guidance and healing power of the Akashic Records, plus her bottomless bag of tools to release outdated energetic weight, the authority on all things soul, JEN DUCHENE illuminates the potential for empaths, creatives, and entrepreneurs to embrace and embody the more they truly desire. Welcome, JEN DUCHENE. So happy that you're here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm excited to share your wisdom and experience about the Akashic Records. But before we dive deeper into that, let's answer the biggest question of all. What are the Akashic Records?
Yes, that is certainly something people ask a lot. So there are many answers. Some people see it as a library. I think that's helpful to see it as a library just because of the idea that in a library you go in. If you want something, a reference, you're going to go to the desk and you're going to ask somebody, okay, this is what I need. And the more direct the question, like I actually need, if say you wanted a book on cooking, then you say, tell me about cooking. And then they just send you off to all the files about cooking. And if you go, well, I actually want to learn how to cook a particular dish, then they're going to send you to the exact book or the exact story. So the idea is there's layers. The Akashic Records is the ether of all knowing, of all soul knowing, and everything has a record. And in order for us to access that energy, to go into and express and connect with our souls, because that's the ultimate, is, yes, it's a place of records. But why would we even be interested? Because it gives us information that allows us to know more about ourselves and actually free us from this idea that somehow we're trapped or we can't be who we are, that the world is stopping us. And when we go in and we connect to not only this immense amount of information, which I often talk about it in terms of archaeology, right? Because it's like a dig. You go in, sometimes you're just digging, you can dig out a whole lot because you know there's nothing. Mm-hmm. And then you get to that little thing that you need to kind of sweep a brush around so you can really get to that beauty, to that peace. So it's like you're bringing your soul back into connection with your body, mm-hmm. which is, I believe, and that's what I've been told in the records, is the ultimate. The ultimate is we want to connect the bigger truth of our souls to this body. We want to embody who we are, the soul of who we are, so we can express that in the world. And that's really what the Akashic Records is and does. It gives us access to that information and that experience.
Wow, this is so exciting. I love your description of it. And it actually gets me really excited. Like, wow, I want to be in touch with that, to have access to that and to gain that information. There seems like there's so much there. What an amazing resource. And when you said it was like a library, I almost saw it like, you know, when you type in something in the Google bar and you're like, I want to learn about this. And then like a million pages comes up, you know, and you start like digging through one page at a time. That's a little bit what it sounded like to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So you have all this knowledge. It's this grand library. But the thing is, we don't want to know everything, or at least not at one time, right? What we'll be really interested is, how can this help me be more of who I am? How can this help me feel more at ease with my life and my experiences. So, that's the thing that the Akashic Records brings to us, because it's this energy of unconditional love that we can receive if we're willing to kind of raise our vibration enough to understand that what we see and what we experience or how we experience it is not always everything. That's just a tiny little touch of what is real.
Yeah. So this is great. When you go into the records and you're working with clients, I understand what you're saying. Like it's a vast resource. There's so much information. But what is it that you do in the records? What are you focusing on to really help people?
Well, my primary goal for working with people in the records is to help empower them so they understand I am a big soul. I have access. I have knowledge, because so many of us have what they call unfinished business, karma. Like we feel dissatisfied about, or we think there's something wrong with us. Like, oh, why does this keep happening? The same thing keeps happening. I had a boyfriend and he did this, and then I got another boyfriend and he did the same thing. We often don't realize the patterns that we're living in. We're just repeating patterns over and over. And the reason we repeat patterns over and over is because it's like our being is locked into a certain place. So you can go so far and no further. You hit against the kind of barrier and then you kind of bounce back. So you think, oh, I'm getting there. And then you kind of bounce back. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's, the Akashic is a place of asking questions. It's a divination tool. So any divination tool is about asking questions. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about, you're going to library, how clear are your questions? And so for me, this is about how can I live a better life? How can I feel better about myself, right? Because that's the ultimate to living a better life is I want to feel better about myself. I want to trust myself. I want to know I can have more of what I want. Instead of feeling like I've always got to catch up, or that I always have to work on myself like I'm a project, or that life is suffering. So that's my focus with my clients, my students, is how can I see myself as a loved being? Because that's the ultimate. We don't feel love because we are brought into the world, and usually, whether it's our parents or our peers or someone, our teachers, are making us feel bad about ourselves. No, I say making, but that's because we're responding to a condition because we think that's true, that an adult or someone else outside of us has knowledge we don't have. And so clearly their knowledge is more valuable than ours. So let's try to be like them, right? Let's please them, or let's rebel against them, or etc. But all of that is about seeking love. And because the Akashic Records and because the whole divine energy is about receiving love, to me, when I'm working with my clients or my students, I want them to know that they are loved. But it's not me that can love them. I mean, of course, I can hold that container and say, you're an amazing person, or I see that in you. And of course, that can be helpful, but they really want to know that they are loved within themselves. Like, we don't trust it when it comes from the outside. We have to know, we have to feel it. It has to resonate with us. And in order to do that, we want to do that archaeological thing, which is releasing the layers and going, okay, so what's the question? Oh, I have this situation. And then we talk about the situation. I ask the records, what's happening? I hear the information. I get a lot of information just knowing. One of my key awarenesses is knowing, but of course, when you work in the records, more and more of the clairs open up. And so I hear layers of stories, like why hear this? So it could be related to this lifetime, which it often is, because we're working in a cycle. Mm-hmm. And we've made a choice about what we want to learn, but also going back. And I work on releasing energetic weight because my capacity is to work on very deep healing in past lives, in just that the soul is stuck around, that we don't know and can't see and can't imagine. So people don't really need to know all those things, but they do need to understand that they can let go of it. We can change the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're going back into that time and we're saying, I'm done with this. I'm kind of handing in my library book. I'm done,
Right.
And I'm moving on.
Beautiful, beautiful. There's a couple of things there that you said that really, is intriguing me. First of all, when you're working in the records, it sounds like you're communicating, like you said, like they tell me or they show me, like, who is it that you're working with in the records? Who's the they?
So I work with the Akashic beings of light. I call them beings of light, and my guides. So many people have guides, and so my guides are the beings from the Akashic Records.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who see guides, etc., say, "Oh, I see your guides." They're kind of faceless. They have these like gray outfits. I see them sometimes. And when I was a child, all my life, I didn't even know it until later on, but all my life they have been talking to me. I just thought I was brilliant. Like, oh, such a great idea. Yeah, somebody's been talking, because it wasn't like the normal, like, oh, you suck. I mean, I had that too, but it was all the stuff coming through. And after working in the records for a couple of years, I was like, oh, it's not me, it's them. And, making that connection. So they're these energies of the Akashic. So in the field, there are many different energies or many different beings, if you want to call them beings. They have never been sentient. That means they've never left. Once the energy from source has entered the library, and some of us may have done that. We may have been working in the Akashic from source energy and then coming down into the world. And then if we just choose to leave, then we can't go back, right? So the idea behind that is because there's no judgment, right? Mm-hmm. Typically, when we have guides or people, they have an agenda. But the Akashic Records, the only agenda is to hold you in the truth. So hold you to the light of truth that you are, and give you the opportunity to not only feel love, but to feel the opportunity of, I can be more of who I am. I can peel back these layers. I can discover the essence of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And when you say peel back the layers and that archaeological dig where we're peeling away the layers, I'm getting the sense of what we're peeling away is, like you said, those maybe untruths that we've picked up, those constructs that we've picked up in our lifetimes. We're peeling them away. And what are we finding underneath?
So that's the key. I believe, and this is what I hear. So, of course, I will just put a caveat that since there are many Akashic readers, and more, which is amazing, we all have our own perspective, right? So we are going to see the pieces that we see or receive in the way that we see and receive it. So there's no wrong or right about it. It's just a very different. Like sometimes people will go deeper. Some people will be more surface. Some people will focus on, food. Some people will focus on soul, etc. So in terms of, just remind me of the question again.
Just we're peeling away these layers.
Oh, peeling away these layers. Right. What's the ultimate? Yes. To me, the ultimate is we are here to express ourselves. Mm-hmm. And even more important, when we talk about expressing, can't say the word, expressing the truth of who we are, right? Mm-hmm. The ultimate, the light within us. That is like when you're a baby, a child, that's what you want. You just want to express the glee and the life, and you're curious, and how do you do this? And what about this? And oh, did you know this? That's the energy of our soul, which is the ultimate free will. The idea that I can be who I am. I can express it. I can experiment. I can try things. I can create. Yes. And when somebody comes to me and says, oh, you suck or you're wrong, I can kind of go, oh, that's interesting. Somebody has a different opinion, but it's not my opinion, and I don't need to conform, right? I don't need to do what many of us have been taught to do through this programming and conditioning, which is people please, or, oh, okay, you're right, I must be wrong, there's something wrong with me, let me go along with you. So that's the ultimate power of peeling back these layers, is lighting the essence within us and allowing us to actually bring to life or materialize the very thing, this very energy that is being illuminated in us. We get an idea, our imagination. This is all the magic of being connected to source, to the Akashic Records. And we're going, I'm going to go do this. And that action it's the ultimate. To me, this is the secret of what the ancients were trying to teach us, is how to be in balance with being, oh, I'm this human and I have these kind of restrictions and I have all these people around me trying to restrict me and trying to, create obstacles. And then I get to kind of play this game of the obstacle game, right? Like, what's an obstacle to me? Do I want to, and when we go towards it, and again, there's no judgment, we get to choose however we want to do it. If I choose to engage in that way, like somebody says something to me that I find offensive, like, oh, why did you do that? And I can go, what do you mean? I can respond like that, or I can listen and go, oh, what are they really saying, etc. Right? So there's different choices in how we respond and what we're telling ourselves about this journey of bringing that balance, which is, I am illuminated and I want to put it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah, beautiful. That's amazingly powerful. And I know that when you spoke about it, I could definitely feel the resonance of what you were saying inside of myself. And maybe it wasn't even something that I had put words on or thoughts around, but definitely what you were saying was ringing true inside of me on some level of knowing. And so, you've used some words here that as we're peeling away these layers and we're also receiving that support and information from the Akashic Records, we're really aligning ourselves with our soul, who we're meant to be, our light. You use the word our light, and that's what we're actually longing, is that, and love. And you use the word love, like the love within us and the love that we are. That's a beautiful thing. And that's the part that feels so powerful to me. That's amazing. And so I can just imagine that as we're doing that and we're peeling away, we're lining ourselves up more in our own loving and in our soul, that, like you said, there's kind of a game to it, that we're discovering who we are and making choices like, what do I want to do? How do I want to create in the world? Wow, that's a powerful thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that, from the Akashic Records perspective? What is that state that they're holding for us? What is that state of being that we have the potential of being and having? That it seems like it's a creative state of being, an expressive state. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, I'd love to. So exciting. One of the key things, and I'll tell you first, is this, besides the love that we want to receive and the connection to our light, we want to know that we belong, right? Because our biggest fear is that we don't belong, or that we're going to be ostracized, right? Which is why we conform, like, oh, if you don't do what I won't love you, or I'll kick you out of the group, etc. Right? So we're kind of conditioned to thinking, I better stay in this group, instead of realizing like, oh, okay, I can just move away. I can form my own group. I can go do my own thing. I don't need to conform because somebody needs me to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So as far as the idea of how do we activate this state of being, or what the Akashic Records, the state of being they desire us to have, is neutrality. But it's not a neutral of, which many of us are taught, the neutrality of, oh, that's happening, I'm just going to go with the flow, right? That's not neutrality. That's giving away our power.
Oh, yes.
So this is empowered neutrality, means that when somebody says something to you, they speak their truths, right? that you don't need to defend yourself from their truth.
Powerful. I love this idea of empowered neutrality. And actually, I was very surprised when you said that. I wasn't expecting that at all. That it's actually a neutrality that we are able to achieve this. Because when you think about that kind of playground that we can play in when we are in contact with our love and our soul level, all these layers that are underneath. It feels to me like it should be very active, very creative and very active. But then you came back with the word neutrality, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. That sounds like it's very, I don't think it's a passive place of being, but maybe it's centered. It's very centered and grounded in the neutrality.
Right. Well, that's what neutral is. So if you think about it, or that's how I get it from the record. So if you think about the way we live in a polarized experience, right? We're having a polarized experience. Right. So we're having black and white, male and female.
Duality.
The duality, polarity. Well, a polarity or duality is one line, right? One line of energy that has two ends. One end is one polarity, the other one is the opposite, right? So night and day. So it's all about the light of the day. Some is night, some is day. So how do we find that center? Is we come to the place where we feel that equilibrium. Now, the thing you have to remember, this movement of the equality or whatever you want to call it or balance, is up to us, because we're going to be in different places at different times. It's not a rigid thing that everyone has to go to spot A, and if you're not at spot A, well, you're just expelled, right? This is our experience. We're having an experience. So our experience is when we begin to realize that, hey, those things that I'm fighting about or arguing about are actually all the same thing. They're just different places on the same line. So where do I want to be? It's like a tug of war. If you've ever played that game, tug of war, right?
Yeah,
right? If you're pulling it back, it's the same thing. Well, that's what we're doing with our lives. We're working like that. We're tugging it towards where we want it to be. Or if you think about the scales, right? Yeah. When you want to experience balance, or that the scales are equal or equilibrium in your life, you have to decide this is kind of the payment or the knowledge or the acceptance to have this. Right? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? That's how you find equilibrium. That's how you find neutrality. Right. Neutrality is not a passive thing. It's an action, because you have to constantly be in awareness. I'm making a choice. I'm having a reaction. What do I want to do about it? So the difference is, we're not saying that your response is wrong. There's nothing wrong with your response. It's like, yeah, that's my response. I'm angry. I'm, excited. Yay. Whatever that is, it's acknowledging and allowing. I can have any of those responses. But it's, what do I choose to do with it? How do I take this energy that I feel that's starting to stir inside of me? And what am I choosing to do with it? Am I choosing to activate it into my creation, my activation, my greatest skill and grounding? Or am I choosing to go, okay, if I keep insisting that somebody else does something, you can see how one will put you in balance and one won't. And when you're grounded, which is the whole point of the balance or the scales, is you make the choice from a very strong or empowered way. Like, yeah, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing to go into this argument. I'm choosing to defend myself, or any of those. So I'll give you an example. I had a friend who sent me a note about something we were doing, and, her truth, which felt like, was like a slap, like here. Right? And I'm like, wow. Mm-hmm. And I could have been angry back to her. So I just said, my first response was, thank you for letting me know. Mm-hmm. And I didn't say anything else. I'm just moving on. And then a day later, after I thought about it, because this is the thing about going with the flow or standing in your power. Like, yes, she is entitled to her truths, but then so am I. And I'm not just going to go, oh, okay, let's just forget about it and move on, because it's going to stay with me, right? Mm. So then after a few days, when I was ready, I just sent her this loving note of, you know, when you wrote X, I was very hurt. Like, yeah, I'm not saying that isn't your truth. Like, I'm not taking that away from you, but I just want you to know it was true, that it would hurt me, and that this was my perspective of this experience. Mm-hmm. That's what I experienced. I don't know if, you know, if it wasn't like that. And, you know, if you felt like that, you should have, you know, I would have appreciated you telling me, you know, and I apologize for, you know, whatever my part was. Mm-hmm. And that in turn gave her the opportunity to come back and kind of look at what she had said and say, I didn't mean it that way, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. So there's an example of standing in my power, as opposed to either saying, I'm not just going to ignore her and I'm not going to answer, or I'm going to get mad and I'm going to really give it to her, right? Mm-hmm. So you see the difference is like, this is what it means to be in neutrality. Like, I'm totally at peace with her having her own opinion, as I should be, right? Yeah. Yeah. Because everyone has their own opinion. So I don't want to say her opinion is wrong, because how do I know it's wrong, right? It's not for me to decide. Yes. But I know that I am hurt, therefore I must express my hurt, but in a way that is not manipulative. I'm not trying to say, yeah, you said this and they said that. Right. And even when she responded with some, you know, she responded very beautifully and then said one thing to like defend herself, I didn't even acknowledge that, because it doesn't matter. Like, if she needs to defend herself, you know, that's on her. I don't, and I probably do that sometimes too. You know what I mean? So it's not like, yes, we all do these things because we're human, but what do we do with what we've been given? Right, right.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that example. It's very powerful, because I know that we've all been there, and it sounds like it really adds some color to what this neutrality is, in honoring ourselves, but also in honoring the other. That really seems like what's at play here, that and that both sides of that conversation can be handled in a way that's very loving, and yet, you know, really honoring and self-expressive. So thank you for that. And I guess I want to know next is, like, in the Akashic Records, you know, what is their perspective on our, you know, as we peel all these things away and we are becoming more conscious about the choices that we're making, and when we're conscious about what we're manifesting, what we're creating, you know, what is the Akashic Records perspective of that? Like, what are they holding for us in the records, and being more soul aligned?
So the Akashic Records, because it's you could say it's a library of love, right? Unconditional love. Mm. So what they hold for us is the opportunity or the prospect of us understanding that when we are fully loved, that we're not needy. Right? Yeah. So that's basically this in the simplest form, right? That when you understand that you're not needy, when you're not grasping, when you don't need someone to think of you a certain way, mm-hmm. when you're not afraid to, or even if you are afraid, like, you know, it's a challenge sometimes to reach out to a friend you really care about. Like in my case, I really care about that friend, mm-hmm. and I want our relationship to continue. But I had to still go speak my truth and say, I was hurt and this is what happened. And then choose the path, because I'm focused on what I value, right? As opposed to what she will think of me. Mm-hmm. And that's the key of the Akashic Records, is they want you to know you are this, right? You are this magnificent being. You are the energy of creation. You're here to express and explore. And so it's safe to do that. It's like all of our conditioning over hundreds of years has been, it's not safe to do what you want to do because there's a system and you have to follow the system. And the system hasn't been about love. It's been a system of punishment and suffering. The natural fact with our souls, and when we connect to that and we understand this isn't about suffering. Like, we get to choose because we have free will. So we get to choose how we live our experience. So sometimes we may have people who like to complain and go, oh, my life's so hard and I hate my life. And then many of us want to try fixing that. And go, oh, your life's not so bad. What about this? Try that. And instead, we need to move back from that and go, oh, okay. Like, we're just accepting this is this person's enjoyment. They are enjoying their experience. Because if they weren't, they would change it.
Right. Absolutely. And so, what do you think is helpful in your experience with working with clients in people getting back in touch with their love and getting back in touch with that creative expression? And like you said, not being in that needy place, but really, being loved and feeling it and accepting it. Like you said, that person who might be insisting on this story, like, is there anything in your experience that really helps them get past that story to finding a deeper layer of loving?
Yes. So, okay, I think you asked me two different questions. So I'm going to answer the second one first, because I remember what it is. Okay. The records are open. So it's just like, oh my God, things come in and I can't always remember details. But yes, so one of the things that's so helpful for people that are in those places, or any of us, no matter where we are, and I think this pertains to your other question, is this idea of acceptance, that we are not here to change others, right? We're here to have our own experience. And part of that experience is changing ourselves, not changing ourselves because there's something wrong with us, but changing ourselves because I have a desire, right? This is linked to that light, to the desire. I want more of something. So this is my desire. So being linked to that desire means I let go of kind of carrying everyone around me, fixing everyone around me, having an opinion about what they do. And I start to focus on my opinion, my desire, right? And so that just kind of changes the energy, because from being all over the place and I don't have time and I can't do what I want, I never can do what I want, it's just like zoom, like this, right? Yeah. This is what I'm doing. Even if it's microscopic, even if you're in a job that you hate, it's like, that's a choice. I hate my job. Okay, that's a choice. You can practice learning to love your job, right? Yeah. It's like, just because you're working and you need the money and you have all these reasons, why not turn it around, right? It's because it's what you're telling yourself about what you're experiencing. And maybe it truly isn't a good job, and then you've got to find another job. But this is the point, is it's not so much the choices we take, if they feel aligned, right? That we trust, like, this feels like my path, this is where I want to go. And of course, I think just learning to read your own records is so powerful. It's such an incredible tool for teaching people how to work with all of these different perspectives and ideas. So that's a super good tool, but it's also just going, this is me, this is my situation. What is it that's making my life so painful? Like, oh, I hate my job. Okay, what can I do? Like, we want to dig into what is it that I'm thinking, believing, telling myself about maybe my coworkers, maybe about my job, that keeps me in that place of dissatisfaction, right? Because if I decide I want this money or whatever I'm getting for it, then I have to decide that I'm willing and loving what I have to do to get it, right? Just like when you're in your own business, like, yes, there's lots of things you have to do. You have to wear all the hats. And if I decide to myself that I want this business and I want to take where I need to go, then I'm going to have to learn to love all the things that I have to do, or find ways to give it to someone else, right? So that's that part. And then the other one, how to help people. I didn't finish that part, but besides just accepting that people are like, yeah, that's your choice. I'm saying you, all of us need to see everyone else as the beautiful, huge soul they are. So it's like we're saying, I see you in your magnificence. And I accept that this is your choice right now. And I'm not going to try and change it because that's not for me. Because I see your potential. Yeah. And if I hold you in that vision, you can maybe see that potential too. I don't know if you know anything about the, what was his name? Moto, the Japanese guy that did all the water stuff about energy in the water.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the energy, and they've done studies about all this thing, not just water, but the energy of what we put out. So if you make a statement or you have a thought about someone, it actually impacts their energy field. Wow. So if you say something horrible about someone, they lose energy, right? Right. So just think, if you have somebody who's moaning and complaining and is a pain to be around, if you're holding them to the vision that they are a giant soul choosing this experience, right? Right. Like even if they don't know it, it doesn't matter. And you hold them to that vision like, wow, I see that this is your choice and I respect that. Then you help them to move out of disempowerment because you are seeing them as a powerful being. You're not going, oh, Shane, you poor little thing. There's something wrong with you. I need to help you. Like all of these things that maybe we don't even know we're thinking, but it's part of our reason. You know, or I'm uncomfortable because you're unhappy, and I don't like unhappy people because that's part of our conditioning. Like, I'm not happy. Everyone around us telling us, you made me unhappy. You know, when it's nothing to do with us.
Right. Beautiful.
Right. And I'll just say one more point about that, which is besides holding people in that energy, the second thing is by you doing your thing, right? You drawing in your energy and focusing on what you do. You actually make it possible for other people to do the same because we're widening the field of possibility. Because whatever is in the field means it's available to all of us.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's amazingly powerful. And in some ways it sounds so simple. The idea of acceptance, wow, you know, it can be that simple. And it's very empowering. Because I'm no longer expending my energy to, you know, make it okay for someone else or, you know, change their story. And instead I'm claiming my power back and allowing them to claim their power. It's so simple, but at the same time, so incredibly powerful and empowering. I love that. Thank you so much for that. It looks like we're coming up to the end of our time, but before we go, I know that you came today with a gift for everyone. Will you tell us more about that?
Yes, I would love to. So one of my gifts or abilities in the records is I am actually really good, or people tell me I am, with these meditations. I do these amazing activations with the Akashic Records. And so that's what I've created. I've created a special activation. It's for having more, so expanding your ability to receive, because we want more of what we want. And the way we have more of what we want is to understand that we have permission to have what we want. No one's stopping us from having what we want except us and all of that conditioning. So this activation is about that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's an amazing gift. Thank you for your generosity and also for your time being here and sharing with us your wisdom and your experience in the Akashic Records. Thank you so much, Jen, for being here.
Thank you.
And then to all of our listeners out there, I hope that you've gotten something out of this conversation, whether it was about acceptance or how to tap into more of our loving, and also to unpack more of the layers using the Akashic Records. There's still more to unpack here. The Akashic Records is a very vast place, so I hope you keep checking out all of these interviews. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next round. Bye-bye, everyone.